They fail because they can't stay consistent. Every day begins with a choice between comfort and commitment, between the ease of distractions and the challenge of discipline. Most people don't fail because they lack talent, intelligence, or opportunity. They fail because they can't stay consistent with their goals. Discipline is the invisible bridge that turns dreams into milestones. Without it, ambition becomes noise. With it, even average potential can produce extraordinary outcomes. Think about this. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. The world is full of people who say they want success but live every day in opposition to that desire. The truth is, discipline isn't a punishment, it's a path to freedom. When you train yourself to follow through on your intentions, you no longer need to rely on motivation. You become dependable, you become powerful. Discipline is what builds confidence, not the other way around. It's easy to feel good when you're winning, but it's discipline that keeps you going when the applause stops. It gets you out of bed when the mind argues for comfort. It makes you show up when no one is watching. It's the quiet force that separates those who simply wish from those who achieve. And the best part, discipline is not something you're born with. It's something you build. Today, I'm going to share 5 core habits that will help you stay disciplined every single day, not just when it's convenient, not just when you're motivated, but even on the days when everything inside you screams to quit. These habits aren't hacks or shortcuts. They are battle-tested behaviors that forge mental steel and give you the edge in life. If you're tired of starting over, if you're ready to become unshakable, then these 5 habits are your blueprint. The first moment of your day sets the tone for everything that follows. Waking up with intention means choosing to begin your day on your own terms, not someone else's. Far too many people open their eyes and immediately reach for their phone, diving headfirst into messages, news, notifications, and other people's agendas. When you do that, you're not waking up, you're reacting. You surrender your mental clarity before your feet even touch the ground. Discipline begins the second you open your eyes, and the way you start your morning either empowers your focus or scatters it. If the first thing you consume is noise, your mind will remain noisy. But if the first thing you choose is quiet direction, that calmness will guide you forward with intention. Establishing a consistent wake-up time is more than just about being an early riser. It's about building internal trust. When you wake up at the same time every day, regardless of how you feel, you send a powerful message to your subconscious. I do what I say I'll do. It's a promise kept daily, and that repeated action strengthens your discipline. It doesn't matter whether it's 4 a.m. or 7 a.m. What matters is that you choose the time and honor it. You resist the temptation to hit snooze because you value progress over comfort. Each morning becomes a quiet victory over the part of you that seeks excuses. The beauty of the morning is that it belongs entirely to you. Before the emails flood in, before the demands of others begin to pull at your energy, this is the golden space where clarity can be cultivated and purpose can be sharpened. That's why building a morning routine that centers you is not optional for those who want to lead themselves with discipline. You begin with silence, whether through meditation, prayer, deep breathing, or simply sitting with your thoughts. Silence allows your mind to catch up with your intentions. Then you move. Movement is not about burning calories, but about activating your body and mind. A short walk, some stretches, or a quick workout tells your physiology that it's time to engage with the world, not hide from it. Finally, you plan. You don't leave your day to chance. You write your goals, visualize your tasks, and create clarity before chaos has the chance to step in. These simple, intentional acts compound into something powerful over time. You're no longer someone who reacts to life, but someone who orchestrates it. Morning control is not just a productivity hack, it's identity work. Every day you lead your morning, you reinforce the idea that you are someone who chooses purpose over passivity. That identity starts to take root, and soon, discipline doesn't feel like a chore, it becomes who you are. You don't need to wait for motivation because you've already chosen direction. You don't need to prove anything to anyone because your actions already speak for you. Owning your morning is an act of rebellion in a world that wants your attention the moment you wake up, but it's also an act of self-respect. It's choosing to give yourself the best version of your own energy before the world gets a piece of it. Over time, these early hours become sacred, not because they are quiet, but because you've made them yours. You no longer wake up and fall into someone else's rhythm. You create your own beat, your own momentum, and your own path. And that, more than anything, is how daily discipline is born. The first hour after you wake up is the most critical window of the day. It's the moment when your willpower is at its highest and your mind is most impressionable. What you choose to do during this time doesn't just influence your productivity, it sets the emotional and mental tone for everything that follows. Discipline isn't about grand acts. It's built in these early decisions. That first hour is your launch pad. And if you want to create serious momentum in your life, this is where it starts. The actions you take here either set you up to lead the day or drag behind it. Momentum is a force, and once it's in motion, it becomes easier to keep going. But without a strong start, even the best intentions collapse under the weight of distraction and delay. To build this momentum, your first hour must contain something meaningful, a task that stretches you, not busy work, not checking your inbox or tidying your desk, but something that matters. It could be writing a chapter, working on a business idea, studying, creating content, or anything aligned with your higher goals. The key is that it should require effort, focus, and presence. This task doesn't have to be completed in one sitting, but it must challenge you. When you do something difficult first thing in the morning, you claim a psychological edge over the rest of the day. You no longer wait to feel ready, you act, and the action creates energy. Instead of losing yourself in avoidance, you lean into discomfort, and that one choice radiates into every part of your day. Taking on something hard early isn't just about achievement. It's about self-respect. You are telling yourself, I don't hide from responsibility. I rise to meet it. And this shift in self-perception is powerful, because each time you accomplish something that required your full attention, especially when it was uncomfortable or inconvenient, you deepen your belief in your own discipline. You start to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who takes initiative instead of waiting for conditions to be perfect. That inner trust is what sustains long-term consistency. You don't need to rely on motivation anymore because you've created a system that prioritizes forward motion. Psychologically, early wins create a cascade of confidence. When you start the day with a hard-earned victory, everything else feels more manageable. You stop negotiating with yourself throughout the day because you've already proven your capability in the first hour. This small but intentional act becomes your anchor, a quiet but undeniable reminder that you're in control. You've already done the thing you were most likely to avoid, and now your mind is clear, your emotions are steady, and your energy is purposeful. That's not an accident, it's discipline in motion. Over time, this habit compounds. One day turns into a week turns into a month, and the identity of someone who wins the morning becomes hardwired into your mindset. Even on the days you feel tired, uninspired, or distracted, this practice reminds you of who you are. The first hour becomes sacred ground, a personal proving ground where you set the standard for how you show up in the world. You stop waiting for life to happen to you and begin happening to life. And that shift from passive to intentional, from waiting to leading, is the true essence of daily discipline. Discipline doesn't just come from willpower, it comes from structure. Without a clear framework for how you spend your time, even the most determined person will drift. That's why it's not enough to have good intentions. You need a system that transforms those intentions into action. And that begins with scheduling your priorities, instead of letting your schedule be dictated by randomness or urgency. Too many people react to their calendars as if their time belongs to someone else. They squeeze in important work around distractions, meetings, and obligations, hoping they'll find time for what matters. But hope is not a strategy. If something is truly important, it doesn't belong on a wish list, it belongs on your calendar. What gets scheduled gets done. Using a planner, whether it's digital or physical, gives your day direction. It becomes a visual commitment to yourself. When you take the time to map out your non-negotiables, the tasks, habits, and responsibilities that move your life forward, you remove the guesswork. You know exactly what needs to be done, and more importantly, when you're going to do it. This reduces mental friction. Instead of constantly debating what to work on, your plan answers that question for you. You don't wait to feel like it, because the decision has already been made. Discipline in many ways, is simply honoring the decisions your best self made ahead of time. But scheduling alone isn't enough. If your calendar's packed with vague, overwhelming tasks, you'll still procrastinate. That's why clarity is essential. Big goals can feel intimidating, and when you stare at a task like launch business or write book, it's easy to freeze. So instead, you break large objectives into smaller, manageable steps. Discipline thrives in environments where there is structure and simplicity. If you want to make real progress, you must take complex goals and reduce them to actionable chunks. 1 hour of focused effort on a clearly defined task is more valuable than a whole day lost in confusion and indecision. Another trap to avoid is multitasking. In a world full of notifications, open tabs, and constant interruptions, multitasking can feel productive, but it actually fractures your attention. You're not doing multiple things at once. You're switching rapidly between tasks, draining your energy and lowering your quality of work. Discipline demands that you slow down and focus deeply. When you single task with intensity, you enter a flow state where your mind sharpens and your performance improves. Even just 30 minutes of undistracted work can produce results far beyond what you achieve when you're scattered. The goal isn't to do more things, it's to do the right things with full presence. When you deliberately schedule your priorities and follow through with focused execution, you begin to reclaim your time. You're no longer rushing through tasks or putting out fires. Instead, you're living with intention. You have a plan, and that plan reflects your values. You're not letting the day decide how it wants to treat you. You're deciding how you will treat the day. And in that choice, you become the architect of your discipline. The calendar becomes more than just a tool. It becomes a mirror. It reflects who you are and who you are becoming. And when you see that consistency day after day, the belief in yourself deepens. You no longer question if you'll get things done. You know you will because your actions prove it. Discipline often fails, not because people lack motivation, but because they rely too heavily on willpower. The truth is, willpower is a limited resource. It gets drained by decision fatigue, stress, and emotional exhaustion. If you're constantly forcing yourself to be disciplined, eventually you'll burn out or give in. That's why the real key to sustainable discipline is building systems. Systems remove the burden of choice. They create structure, predictability, and momentum. And one of the most effective systems for staying consistent is built on micro commitments, small, manageable actions that are so simple they're almost impossible to avoid. These actions don't require motivation, they only require a decision. And when repeated daily, they create a foundation for long-term success. The most powerful way to install micro commitments into your life is through habit stacking. This is the process of linking a new behavior to something you already do without thinking. For example, if you already drink a cup of coffee every morning, you can build a new habit by stacking it on top of that routine, such as journaling for 5 minutes right after your last sip. Because your brain already recognizes the existing habit, the new one gets anchored more easily. Over time, the association becomes automatic. You no longer have to think about it or push yourself to follow through. You've turned an act of discipline into part of your identity. You don't need to hype yourself up, you just do it because it's part of who you are now. What makes micro commitments so effective is that they lower the barrier to entry. Instead of telling yourself to run 5 miles, you start with 10 push-ups. Instead of reading for an hour, you read for 5 minutes. The commitment is intentionally small because the goal isn't to be heroic, it's to be consistent. Most people fail because they aim too high too soon and then quit when they can't sustain it. But micro habits bypass the resistance. They're too small to fail. And once you start, you often do more than you planned anyway. But even if you don't, you've still honored your commitment, and that builds trust in yourself. These rituals, repeated over time, become part of the invisible architecture of your day. You don't have to remind yourself constantly, the rhythm takes over. You no longer struggle with starting because the system is already in motion. That's the power of micro victories. Each small action becomes a silent win, a vote in favor of the person you're becoming, and the brain responds. Each win triggers a sense of accomplishment, releasing dopamine and reinforcing the behavior. The more wins you accumulate, the more your identity begins to shift. You stop seeing discipline as something you occasionally try and start seeing it as something you consistently live. Eventually, the results of these small actions compound. What began as 5 minutes of reading becomes a deepened mindset. What started as a short workout becomes a healthier body. What began with a few lines in a journal becomes a sharpened sense of purpose. Macro success is just the visible outcome of invisible consistency. It's not about doing everything at once, it's about doing something repeatedly with intention. Micro commitments make it easier to start, easier to repeat, and easier to build upon. They turn chaos into order and effort into habit. In a world that constantly demands more from you, this approach gives you back control. It's the smallest step forward, repeated daily, that leads you farther than any giant leap made once and forgotten. Discipline is not just about how you begin your day, it's also about how you end it. Without a proper conclusion, your effort can begin to feel mechanical, even hollow. That's why reflection is essential. When you move through your days without pause, constantly focused on the next task, the next goal, the next checkbox, you may achieve a lot, but eventually you'll feel depleted. Discipline without reflection is like driving a car without checking the dashboard. You may keep moving, but you have no idea how close you are to running out of fuel. Reflection is what fuels growth. It allows you to pause, assess, recalibrate, and recommit. It brings awareness to your patterns, your wins, and your blind spots, so you don't repeat the same mistakes or overlook your progress. One of the most effective ways to reflect is through journaling or quick daily check-ins. This doesn't have to be long or poetic. Just a few sentences on what went well, what challenged you, and what can improve tomorrow is enough. When you write things down, you create a space for honesty. You face your behavior with clarity instead of excuse. You begin to notice trends, moments when you consistently show up strong, and moments when you fall short. And more importantly, you start to understand why. This kind of reflection doesn't just guide your actions, it sharpens your awareness and builds a deeper sense of self-discipline rooted in understanding, not just brute force. Another layer to maintaining discipline over the long haul is accountability. While self-discipline is deeply personal, it doesn't have to be done alone. Sharing your goals with a trusted friend, mentor, or even an accountability app can dramatically increase your follow-through. Knowing that someone else is aware of your intentions brings a subtle, powerful pressure to show up. It's not about shame or fear of judgment. It's about creating a sense of responsibility that extends beyond yourself. When you declare your goals out loud, they become real. And when someone checks in, it reminds you that your effort matters. You're no longer just making promises to yourself in silence. You're living them out in community. Accountability also helps on the tough days. The days when motivation is low or when setbacks creep in. A quick conversation, a message, or even a progress tracker can reignite your momentum. It pulls you back into alignment with your higher self, the version of you that committed to discipline, not just for success, but for integrity. And while it's important to track your goals and performance, it's just as important to celebrate the effort itself. We live in a culture obsessed with results, but discipline is not perfection. It's about showing up, even imperfectly. It's about consistency, not flawlessness. When you take time to acknowledge your effort, the times you followed through despite being tired, the choices you made when no one was watching, the routines you kept even on chaotic days, you reinforce your identity as someone who honors their commitments. That kind of self-recognition isn't vanity, it's fuel. It reminds you that your discipline is working, even if the results aren't visible yet. Reflection and accountability are what make that discipline sustainable. They turn each day into a lesson and each habit into a story. They help you close the day with purpose instead of just exhaustion. And in doing so, they prepare you to begin the next one with even more clarity, strength, and intention. The difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck isn't potential, it's practice. Discipline isn't glamorous. It doesn't go viral on social media. But it's what greatness is made of. You don't need more time, more motivation, or more hacks. What you need is the courage to do what you said you'd do, especially when you don't feel like doing it. Every day you choose your habits, and your habits shape your future. There is no magic formula. But these 5 habits, waking with intention, owning the first hour, scheduling your priorities, building micro commitments, and reflecting daily, will anchor your discipline. They'll help you become someone you respect, someone others can count on, and someone who moves forward no matter how strong the resistance is. So today, draw a line, commit to a new standard. Don't chase motivation, build discipline. Because the life you want is already within your reach. It's just on the other side of consistency.